Good afternoon, Chaos. It's Kelatos, your friendly Legion's leader here, to do another roster review. This one pretty long overdue, but also a second look at one of our current Legion's officers, El Jefe, who is currently on loan to Society to get some experience in the heroic Sith raid. And Jefe has asked me to look over his heroic Sith teams to kind of give him some feedback and kind of what I think he could work on, what he could do to improve those teams. So I went through Jefe's roster and found what I think could be 4 or 5 different teams, see how they could work with him, and kind of give him 1 or 2 teams per phase to work on and focus on to build up. So this could really help anybody trying to get ready for the heroic Sith raid, specifically those in Legions and Rise, because you know you're the next targets to get there. So really just look and see how your teams compare to Jefe's and see if you can benefit from the feedback I'm giving. Now, I'm not even going to look at the stats to see what his overall roster power is, because we're not worried about that, though it does show up here right now. We're going to look at specific raid-ready teams. Now, the first one I'm going to look at is a Resistance team. And this team is the seemingly all-powerful Jedi Training Rey. Now, Jedi Training Rey, R2-D2, BB-8, Resistance Trooper, and Scavenger Rey all do it's probably the biggest damage team in the heroic Sith raid right now, and we see that Jefe's got those guys really good to go. Resistance Trooper is 1 piece from Gear 12, and Rey is 1 piece into Gear 11. So good job there. Rey has 1 Zeta, R2 has 1 Zeta, and BB-8 has 1 Zeta. Now, this team will probably net Jefe some pretty decent damage. However, before it's totally maxed out, could definitely use a Zeta on Insight, giving Rey a lot more oomph, a lot more strength. He doesn't have the combat analysis on R2-D2, but with the Rey Jedi Training Lead, it's not super necessary. And BB-8, we do have a role with the Punches Zeta, which is pretty necessary for this group. Self-preservation protocol could be nice if you find your R2-D2 dying fairly early, or being one of the first to die, because this Zeta will allow BB-8 to heal all himself and all droid allies when BB-8 evades an attack. So he does get a fair amount of foresight, and so combining that foresight with healing on R2 and BB-8, if you find one or both of them dying early or dying first, you might want to look into getting that. So your Raid Jedi Training group is looking pretty good. From there, I looked at some Phase 2 teams, and the first one that popped out to me is what we've kind of dubbed the Machine Gun Leia. And yours is pretty good right now. Your leader would be Admiral Akbar, so you would need some gear on Akbar to kind of work it out. However, it might work out better if your Akbar dies pretty early. I don't know. It's up to you to give it a try and see. Along with Admiral Akbar, I would recommend going with a strong tank. And your Stormtrooper Han is very strong, with even a Zeta on one of his... Oh yes, Bluff, the Zeta where he recovers 5% protection whenever he gets hit. So not a bad Zeta. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but it definitely would have its uses. I'm sure your Stormtrooper Han has plenty of protection. With this group, you would also have Princess Leia, and you would want to get... Well, there's a Zeta upgrade for against all odds that you don't want. You would want to get Princess Leia up geared as much as you can. Sabine, who I see you don't... Ah, there she is. Gear 10. Sabine and her Darksaber Strike is awesome with this group. Her Blaster's Akimbo does have a lot of damage. So if she does get called instead of Princess Leia to attack, that's not a bad thing at all. And the fifth person in that group would be a healer for sure. And really for healers, you can't beat the Jedi, specifically Hermit Yoda. Now, Hermit Yoda would be nice. However, you do probably want a Zeta on Strength Flows from the Force to make it even better. And I was going to recommend putting Qui-Gon Jinn, General Kenobi in that group, but I actually think he could work well for you in a separate group. But your Machine Gun Leia is going to consist of Admiral Akbar, Stormtrooper Han, Princess Leia, Sabine Wren, and Hermit Yoda. Now, ironically enough, I think the second best group for you in Phase 2 is a full Jedi group. With Qui-Gon Jinn, General Kenobi, Jedi Knight Anakin, Ahsoka Tano, and Ezra Bridger. I personally use Aayla Secura, but I noticed Ezra and Ahsoka do very good damage. They have a fair amount of self-healing, and they are much better geared. So you could probably get 500,000 with that group, as long as you geared up Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano with crit chance and crit damage. Jedi Anakin is nice, and when he's there, Ahsoka Tano gets immunity to crits, so she has some fairly good survivability. So that's a good Phase 2 team for you, since your Phoenix is still quite a ways off, and they really need some Zetas to be super effective. So while you're gearing them up, you could definitely use Ezra in that Jedi team and Sabine in the Machine Gun Leia team. Now, Phase 3, you have the very useful Chex Mix team, which is a Commander Luke Skywalker lead with Raid Han Solo, Chirrut Imwe, Pow, and Death Trooper. Now, you might want to get some gear on Chirrut, but you really don't need any gear on Pow, because your Raid Han is really doing all the damage. The only character that goes with those guys is Death Trooper, who would definitely need to be geared up. Now, you want to get him geared up so that he survives long enough to use his Death Mark, so that Raid Han can go to town and just destroy Traya. You don't need any more Zetas in that group than the ones that you already have, so you would be good to go with that group. Yeah, it binds all things. You have the right Zeta. I don't remember the Zeta ability on Rebels Maneuvers or Learn Control, but I don't think either one is needed for the Chex Mix team. And so those are the guys that you would want to use for Phase 3. Just gear Death Trooper. And then for Phase 4, I feel like your team closest to going is not necessarily the Night Sisters, though you do have a Zeta already on Asajj. I think your First Order could be closer to being ready. Now, the ideal First Order group would be Kylo Ren Unmasked with his Zeta lead, First Order Stormtrooper, First Order Executioner, First Order Officer, and First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. Now, that group obviously could use some gear, but I'm telling you, they are fantastic. If you find yourself with too much tanking power of First Order Stormtrooper, your Zeta Kylo Ren could be a great option to sub in. But that would be, for me, the closest to being ready of any of your Phase 4 teams. Because I also noticed that your Clone Troopers could use quite a bit of gear, so they're good for now. If you want to keep working on Night Sisters instead of the First Order, that's fine. I personally feel that your First Order is closer to being ready, however. So, to recap, Phase 1, your Ray Jedi training team, looking pretty solid. Just possibly need a Zeta on Insight for Ray and Self-Preservation Protocol for BB-8. Your Machine Gun Leia team is ready to go with Admiral Akbar, Princess Leia, Sabine Wren, Stormtrooper Han, and Hermit Yoda. Possibly with a Zeta on Hermit Yoda still needed, and maybe a little gear on Admiral Akbar or Sabine, but not a ton. Your Phase 3 team with the Chex Mix is practically good to go with Commander Luke Skywalker, Raid Han Solo, Chirrut Imwe, Pow, and Death Trooper. Your Jedi for Phase 2 could be ready to go with a Zeta Qui-Gon Jinn lead, General Kenobi, Ezra Bridger, Ahsoka Tano, and Jedi Anakin. You would just need a little more gear on Anakin, Ahsoka, and Ezra. And then your Phase 4 team with the First Order is looking pretty good. I just need some gear on Kylo Ren Unmasked, First Order Officer, and First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. So you can pair them with First Order Executioner and First Order Stormtrooper. Now, hopefully that is plenty to keep you going for a little while. I looked at some of your other groups, Bounty Hunters, which could do decent damage. They're still pretty far away, especially with Bosk not being free to play right now. Your Imperial Troopers didn't look bad, but they're kind of a long way off as well. So I thought your Jedi were a little bit better positioned. However, if you want to do the first 5 troopers here instead of the Jedi, that would definitely be a decent idea, because the troopers do work well in territory war and they're needed for territory battles. So if you were to swap anything, I would swap Imperial Troopers instead of getting your Jedi finished. And if you were going to do the Imperial Troopers instead of Jedi, use General Kenobi instead of Stormtrooper Han in your Machine Gun Leia team. That way Stormtrooper Han doesn't get called to assist very often. So Jefe, like I said, I do apologize for the long wait, but hopefully this is some great information for you, and you can really use it to help guide your farming for a few more months, until something drastic changes, which we know it's going to do. So hopefully you're succeeding in society with their heroic, and we hope to see you back in Legion soon and helping guide us to our heroic Sith kill. Until later, Chaos, this is Hekalatos saying good night and good luck.